Just realize everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host,
Ron Jones!
and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiologic Technologist podcast for Rad Tech by Rad Tech. Thanks for listening.
Okay, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to the Radiologic Technologist podcast. Crazy busy week. I have had the good fortune of stepping back in the front lines and doing exams again. It's been quite a while since I've done any, and I've spent the past few months kind of doing a refresher in X-ray, CT, and ultrasound. I'm not going to go anywhere near MRI for a while, if at all. Today I had the great fortune of checking the orders, the work list, and there was a sternum x-ray that I was able to snatch and go do. After the panic wore off, I remembered the REO and lateral position and nailed it. I ended up getting it. I mean, this stuff, once you learn it, you really don't forget it. You just have to learn protocols. Every protocol or every hospital has different protocols. Not everybody does everything the same. Shoulders, for example, for a long time where I was at, we just did internal, external, and a Y view. And where I'm at now, they do an external, a gray sheet, and a Y. So, you know, it's all good. So I wanted to answer a question that's been hanging out there for a few days. Today is May 22nd. I have a question that came to me in Gmail from someone that we'll just call MM. And here is her question. She says, my name is MM, and I am highly interested in applying to an RT program. I have a few questions, however, regarding my background, which is not in any science fields. I'd sincerely appreciate any advice you could share with me. No problem. I am 25 years old and have a bachelor's degree in fashion and textiles. I have worked in the fashion industry in New York City for the last few years, and after several job changes, layoffs, and many nightmare bosses, I am ready to make a major career change. I have always wanted a job in the medical field where I am truly able to help people, and the human body fascinates me. But I've had a lot of trouble with chemistry, which prevented me from pursuing a nursing degree in the first place. Doing my research, I came across radiologic technologist and thought it would be a perfect fit. I've ironically had several x-ray procedures myself, including a barium swallow. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I am obviously unable to shadow in a hospital, but have been reading your website and watching a lot of RT-related videos to see what a day in the life is like. I am a confident and very capable student. I've been looking into both certificate programs and associate degree programs, trying to decide which will give me the best chance at success, as I know getting into RT programs are highly competitive. Sorry for such a long email, but that's my story. Again, any advice you could share would be much appreciated. Your blogs have helped already a ton. I hope you and your family are safe and healthy. Best wishes. First of all, thank you for the best wishes. So a lot of good questions, a lot of common questions. I've seen these questions a lot. I have several posts on my blog, as you mentioned. For those of you that don't know, I have the radiologictechnologist.com. It has over 82 articles at this point, around 27 videos from that are on the YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, and a couple podcasts that were a blast to do. So if you have more questions, start there. The sitemap page would be a good place to start because it has every article listed. You could kind of do a quick search that way, or you use the search bar on the homepage. So let's dissect this email. And let's start with, I'm 25 years old and I have a bachelor's degree. So don't think that because you have a bachelor's degree in an unrelated field that it's not going to do you any good, because it can serve you well. Now, my bachelor's degree is in psychology, but that hasn't stopped me from getting a master's in radiologic science from Weber State, and it has allowed me to go into my doctoral studies for an EDD in education and healthcare leadership. So having a bachelor's degree is a big help. It really only matters in that a science-backed bachelor's degree will make things a little bit easier on you as you move up the educational ladder, so to speak. Your textiles, your fashion and textiles bachelor's won't necessarily help you too much when you're in the middle of all that anatomy and physiology and all that stuff, but it is a bachelor's degree nonetheless. So don't poo-poo it, as we say. It's still a bachelor's degree. So congratulations on already attaining that. Next, you say that you worked in the fashion industry in New York City. New York City, as you know, is highly populated. And one of our hotspots, I'll say, for technologists having difficulty finding a job. Any large city where there's overpopulation or a large amount of population, a high population, however you want to put it, there's naturally going to be more challenge finding a job in anything. So I only bring that up because one of the common themes in discussing whether or not someone should get into the field of being an X-ray tech is that people hear these rumors that you can't get a job, or the job is being taken over by artificial intelligence, or whatever, and all of that is bunk. Although I will say it is harder to get a job in a highly populated city. So if you're going to go to X-ray school and you're going to stay in New York City, there are things you can do to ensure that you get a job when you graduate, such as perform extremely well at your clinical rotations, because as I've said on here before, and I say it in my posts, your clinical rotations in X-ray school are one big fat job interview. A hospital that spends 2 years training you for a clinical rotation has a lot of reasons to hire you when you graduate if you did a good job as a student. If you did a bad job, if you gave poor patient care, acted like you didn't want to be there, whatever, if you didn't enjoy your clinical rotation and it showed, that hospital administrative staff will know, and it's already competitive as it is. So if you're looking to get out of New York City, there's lots of jobs. I'm up here in Idaho, and there's quite a few jobs in Idaho. There's some parts of Idaho we can't get enough people. The last job I was at, it had it was a hospital system of, I don't know, 9 hospitals. Um, they, at one point, I mean, just to give you an example, we were short 12 ultrasound techs, and you need a lot less ultrasound techs than you do X-ray techs to run a hospital. So constantly needing X-ray techs. But again, if you're in Dallas or you're in Los Angeles or somewhere, Chicago, somewhere that's highly populated, it's going to be harder, but you can still do it. So moving on. After you've seen several job changes, layoffs, and nightmare bosses, spoiler alert, healthcare has those too. I have been in the field since 2003, and I have been through 3 layoffs. I have had plenty of nightmare bosses. I could tell you unbelievable stories about some nightmare bosses that I've had, but we'll do that on another video. So that's something we don't think about when we jump into school for a technical career or any career. We pick what we think we're going to like, and we go all in, and we learn it, and we get out in the field, and hopefully we're enjoying it. But there's really not an industry that is layoff proof, or you may need to change jobs. Certainly not a nightmare boss proof. So I just wanted to put that out there for you, that I get that that's what's making you want to get out of the field. I just don't want you to naively think that healthcare doesn't have the same problems, because it does. If you're blessed, you will land somewhere that has a good boss, and is stable. I will say, I'm coming on 20 years in the field. To me, it seems like the techs are the most protected, and by that I mean middle management gets knocked around like crazy. And the C-suite is like a revolving door. So, I mean, just go on LinkedIn and pull up 5 CEO profiles for hospitals and go through their chronological, their timeline, and see where they've worked and for how long. And you'll see 6 months, year and a half, 18 months, 2 years, 1 year, 2.5. Those guys and gals just flip around like crazy, which wreaks havoc on everybody underneath them. Stability breeds comfort and security, and having C-suite doors that are revolving doesn't help anybody. But we can't do anything about it, right? On the front line or middle management, especially. So you go on to say, you've always wanted a job in the medical field where you can truly help people. That you're absolutely dead on with that one. Helping people gives a sense of satisfaction that not every job can give you. That's one of the reasons I chose healthcare, I like to solve problems and help people. I mean, there kind of comes a point where if we're not all trying to help, our fellow man, we're going to kind of start working backwards. If everybody's just out for themselves, it's just not going to work. So I'm happy to do my part in the healthcare field and try to solve the riddle of what ails the patient. And you said the human body fascinates me. That's kind of a necessity to get into something like this, because you're going to really need to be able to figure out what's going on the best you can. You're going to need to be able to kind of see in your mind's eye uh, where you need to set your central ray, or what you're going to be scanning through, or if somebody says it hurts right here, you really need to know what organs are right there, and how do you need to adjust your technique for getting the best scan or the best image of that area. So having a fascination for the human body is very important. You mentioned you had a lot of trouble with chemistry. Don't think you really need to worry about that. I didn't have any chemistry classes in X-ray school. Um, there's some physics, and physics is daunting. If you asked or polled or surveyed all of the X-ray techs out there which class was their least favorite, I'm betting 80% are going to say the physics class was their least favorite. It's tough stuff. It's not something you talk about every day, over coffee or whatever. And so you just have to muscle through it. But you're in it with a class of hopefully 12 or more, whatever your class size is, and you're all striving towards the same goal. You need to have study groups and note cards. And I've got a couple of articles about how to study. I want to say it was like 5 different methods in that article to help you study all that stuff. And the thing to remember is, last time I checked, there was over 337,000 registered technologists across the country. So you got to think to yourself, if that many people can pass, so can I. You had trouble with chemistry, which prevented you from pursuing a nursing degree. Let me give you a little tip. You don't want to be a nurse. I'm just saying, there's lots of nurses, love the nurses, don't want to be a nurse. Not me anyway. X-ray allows me to get in and get out, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'm moving on to the next patient. Nursing, you could have that one patient your entire 12-hour shift. If you work 3 12s in a row, you could have that same patient. If you're an ICU nurse, you could be assigned to that same patient for 36 hours. Not for me, thanks. I like to see the patient, do the investigation, do the scan, see if I can't help figure it out, and move on to the next one. And nursing has its own issues. It is true that there are nursing jobs everywhere, but that should tell you something too. And there's always, anyway, I'm not going to go there. You have had several X-ray procedures yourself, including barium swallow, so that gives you a little bit of an insight, of what we do, and those are some common exams. And you say, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm obviously unable to shadow in a hospital. You're absolutely correct. Everything came to a halt in the hospital, including a lot of our staffing hours, and being able to use PTO when you want to use it came to a halt. It became mandatory to use it. So you're not going to be able to shadow for a while. Things will return to normal and you'll be able to do that. But you're on the right track when you say you've been reading awesome websites like mine and watching YouTube videos because today, I mean, nowadays, there's so much stuff out there that wasn't there 15 years ago when I was dying to see something that would help me. Um, there are multiple places you can go now to see videos, for example, on how to position a patient. If you want to know what the positioning procedure and technique is for a foot x-ray, the ASRT has videos out there. There are YouTube channels where people are teaching it. Some schools have their stuff online. So, keep watching the YouTube videos and seek out those things until you can get some real life experience in there. You said, I've been looking into both certificate programs and associate degree programs, trying to decide which will give you the best chance of degree or best chance at success. Um, I don't think it matters. I mean, you already have your bachelor's degree, so it really doesn't matter if you go for an associate's. I thought most of them gave you an associate's anyway, but maybe there's a few out there that only give you a certificate. All the ones around me in the Phoenix metropolitan area where I was at gave you associates when you completed the course. And the trend for many years has been for it to culminate into a bachelor's program when you get out of x-ray school. So, I wouldn't focus too much on whether the program you choose ends in a certificate or an associate's because you've already got a bachelor's degree. And in fact, that should even help you get into a good x-ray school because where I went, for example, um, you got points. It was a point system. You got points for how you did in your interview because you were interviewed. You got points for any previous classes that you had that go towards the classes that are in the program. You got points for being over 55. You got points for being a veteran. You got points if you had applied before and not made it. Having a bachelor's degree, when I applied, I had a bachelor's degree already, and that gave me some extra points. So don't worry about whether it's associate or certificate. To me, the main thing is just hurry up and get in and get out because your rate of income, your rate of pay, your hourly rate is, I mean, I don't know where you're at with textiles and fashion, but where I went, it gave me a significant jump coming out of school. So what I was looking at is, do I wait for the cheap public school program that was about $6,000 at the time, or do I go immediately into a private program that was about $18,000 at the time? And when I did the math, there was like a 2 to 3 year waiting list to get into the public school because everybody wanted to go to the cheaper version. So I jumped into the private because I could get out faster and start earning more money faster and pay that money back and still be ahead of the curve than if I had waited 3 years to get in plus the 2 to go through the program. So 5 years there versus 2 years here, I had 3 years earnings before I would have even finished the public school. So just get in. If that's if you're really going to go this route, just get in the program and get going. They are highly competitive, although there are apparently some schools that just let people in. I was talking to somebody that was a student from Louisiana, and they got in a program, and it was, not a favorable program where they were at according to them, and they chose to drop that one and go somewhere else. And when I said, did you have to apply? Did you get interviewed? What was the process? They said nothing. They interviewed you, and if they liked you, you got in. Whatever. You say, sorry for such a long email, but that's my story. Again, any advice? Appreciate it, blah, blah. So that's really kind of it. I hope I've answered everything. You're welcome to send me more questions. I'll answer whatever you got. I still find it a very rewarding career. It's still paying very well. There's still lots of jobs out there. This pandemic was interesting. I hadn't seen anything like that. The effect it had on the Rad Techs, because basically the hospitals dropped, best case scenario, all hospitals dropped to about 50% or less of their original volume, their normal volume. And so administration, their first thing is always send everybody home, cut all the expenses, stop paying everything. And this time it actually trickled all the way down to the techs. When we're slow, it's very common to ask the techs if they want to go home early. Would you like to flex out early or low census out early and help save the department some money, because we don't want 5 or 10 techs sitting around when there's nothing to do. But usually, for those of us that work full time forever, we're happy to leave early. And if we have PTO, we can apply that and still get our same size paycheck. But if we've used up all of our PTO, or if the hospital has forced you to use your PTO, then it becomes a struggle. But I've been successful finding and sharing other ways to make up your hours during this COVID-19. For example, most hospitals shut all the external doors and basically left one open as a funnel to force all patients and employees through that door. And there was somebody sitting there taking temporal temperature scanners and asking the questions. And that has to be staffed, a lot of hours. And a lot of times they need the nurses and the CNAs on the floor dealing with the sick patients, where employees like x-ray techs or cafeteria workers or transporters, whoever's getting their hours cut, can go man that front door. So my team's been able to sign up for their extra hours there. What I really like as an administrator of that is those hours help them make up what they've lost, but it doesn't come out of my budget. It comes out of this other infection prevention budget, or you may have a special COVID budget, whatever. But there are other ways to make up those hours if you can get creative, and if your hospital allows it. You can work in other departments. Another kind of little side job that I've always found interesting is being a sitter, which literally means you sit in a room with a patient, because there are certain rules that are imposed upon hospitals that say if you have like a suicidal patient, you can't just leave them in the room unwatched. You have to have somebody sitting in the room at all times to make sure they don't harm themselves. And you typically don't want to pay your nurse to sit in there and just watch them. You pay your CNAs, MAs, that kind of thing. But there's only 2 CNAs per floor, because even though a nurse may only have 3 to 5 to 8 patients, the CNAs have 12 to 20, because they go around and check INOs, or ins and outs, and change the bedpans, and get drinks for the patients, and maybe glucose checks and things like that. The CNAs have to do a big chunk of the floor, so they usually don't have CNAs to be sitters. So I've seen x-ray techs sign up to be a sitter, where for a 12-hour shift you just sit in the room and kind of keep your eye on that patient, but you also are able to get some homework done, or whatever you're doing while you're sitting there reading a book or whatever, and you're getting paid. They have to pay you your regular wages when you work another shift like that. So we found ways around the COVID-19 thing for the most part, but it's a great career, and there's a lot of options. If you've read some of my other posts, or my main video on this YouTube channel, which is the 5 reasons why I chose a career in radiology, part of it is all the doors that it opens. Because once you get into x-ray, then you can go into CT or MRI or nuclear medicine or interventional radiology or mammo or DEXA. There's a whole bunch of other modalities that are called advanced modalities that increase your pay, increase your responsibility, and are just as exciting, if not more exciting, than where you started at. And then there's the whole callback thing, being on call, getting called back in for double pay and all that. So I'm getting kind of long-winded here. I don't have a counter. This platform I'm using just says recording. So I'll cut it here. I hope that answers your questions. If this has been helpful, make sure you like and subscribe. That helps to put the channel out there. YouTube will show it on the sidebar a few extra times the more likes and subscriptions we get. So appreciate the question, and good luck.
I just realized everybody is here to party.
Oh, yeah.